Mother-in-law cut us from her will over no grandkids, then lost it when we moved away after husband's big promotion. I'm 31, and I've been married to my husband, who's 33, for 5 years now. Before that, we dated for about 3 years. Growing up, my parents were pretty laid back. They never pushed me to do anything I wasn't ready for or didn't want to do. My mother-in-law, though, was the complete opposite. Back when we were just dating, she kept pestering us to hurry up and get married. In her mind, being over 25 and unmarried was some kind of social disgrace, and she hated having to explain to her friends that her son was still single. When we finally did get married on our own terms, not because of her constant nagging, she immediately switched gears and started pressuring us to have a baby. The truth is, I just wasn't ready for motherhood yet. We tried to explain to her that the timing wasn't right, that we wanted to wait, but she refused to back off. For 5 long years, she's been on a relentless campaign to push us into parenthood. My father-in-law, for his part, basically told my husband to just let her talk and not make waves. Apparently, in their house, my mother-in-law calls the shots. And sure, I get that it's empowering for her, but honestly, for us, it's been a real nightmare. She cares way more about appearances and impressing her circle of old lady friends than she does about what we actually want for our lives. Her friends, most of them in their 60s, spend all day chatting about their kids and grandkids like it's some kind of competition. My husband's had plenty of talks with her, asking her nicely, and sometimes not so nicely, to stop hounding us about grandkids, but she just ignores him. He even tried asking his dad for help, but, like I said, his father's powerless when it comes to her. His advice was always the same: just suck it up or you'll start a big family fight. And for a while, we did. We kept our heads down, hoping to avoid drama. But over time, it got harder and harder not to lose my temper with her. It finally boiled over about 2 weeks ago. They came over for dinner, and while I was busy trying to cook, she wouldn't stop yapping about some magical herbal tea that supposedly helps women get pregnant. I was already stressed, and after hearing her go on, I just snapped. I told her that if she was so desperate for another baby in the family, maybe she should have had one herself instead of writing me about it. That shut her up real quick, and honestly, I don't feel bad about it at all, especially after what happened today. For the next few times we saw her after that, she didn't mention babies once. My husband and I were honestly relieved. She even started visiting way less often, which was a huge blessing, because before, she'd just pop in whenever she felt like it, no warning at all. After my outburst, though, it felt like she was purposely avoiding me. She'd come by, talk only to her son, and act like I wasn't even there. I'll admit, part of me worried that maybe I had pissed her off too much, and to be brutally honest, we couldn't afford to completely burn that bridge if we wanted to stay in the running for their inheritance. I know it sounds awful and selfish, but the truth is, they've got a lot of money, and having that safety net would really make life easier. My husband feels the same way. It's not the most noble reason to put up with her crap, but it's the practical one. Plus, we lived so close to them anyway. The house we were living in was a wedding gift from his parents, so it just didn't seem worth it to go to war over a few annoying habits. Our real plan was to tough it out a few more years until my husband got the promotion he'd been working toward, and then we could finally buy our own place and get some distance. Well, about 3 days ago, the promotion finally happened. All his late nights and hard work paid off. Not only did he get his own office, but he also landed a huge raise. He works at a bank, and I'm a realtor, so between our jobs, we were doing well, not rich, but comfortable. But now we're officially rich. And I'm not trying to brag, but honestly, we earned it. While he was grinding away at work, I kept everything running smoothly at home, balancing my own job at the same time. It wasn't easy, but we made it work. The thing we were most excited about was finally being able to move out and get away from his mom's constant interference. My husband loves his parents, but even he admits his mother can be a lot to handle. In fact, he was pretty relieved that she'd been keeping her distance after I snapped at her. We decided to have them over for dinner one last time before we started house hunting. I'd already scoped out a few places I liked. Perks of being in real estate, and even though it was a little early to celebrate, we wanted to share the good news with them and make it a special night. So tonight, they came over. The moment my mother-in-law walked through the door, I could tell she was in a mood. She barely looked at me, didn't smile, didn't say much. Honestly, I didn't care. At dinner, my father-in-law did most of the talking, while she sat there sulking, refusing to engage. Once we finished eating, we figured it was time to make our big announcement, but before we could open our mouths, my mother-in-law stood up and said she had something to share. We decided to let her go first, thinking we'd end the night on a high note after whatever she had to say. And thank God we did, because what came out of her mouth left us speechless. She announced that she had officially removed my husband from her will and that she was going to make sure my father-in-law did the same unless we gave her a grandchild within a year. Didn't matter how biological, adoption, surrogacy, she just wanted a grandkid, period. She called us a disgrace, an embarrassment, and said she couldn't take it anymore. She accused us of deliberately robbing her of the chance to be a grandma, said we were doing it on purpose, and made it clear that if we didn't change that soon, my husband wouldn't see a single dime of his inheritance. Instead, she said she'd donate it all to charity. It was so outrageous that, honestly, we just sat there, stunned into silence. Even my father-in-law looked like he'd been slapped, sitting there with his mouth wide open. It was obvious she hadn't even bothered to talk to him before making this grand announcement. He looked just as blindsided as we felt. I'm pretty sure this whole mess was triggered by my comment a few weeks ago when I finally lost my patience with her. But even then, I never imagined she'd take it this far and actually cut her own son out of her will. The thing is, her threat didn't land the way she probably hoped it would. Maybe a few months ago, it would have terrified us, back when we still had to think about leaning on her financially if things ever got rough. But not anymore. Thanks to my husband's promotion, we were finally standing on solid ground. We didn't need her money, or her help, or anything else she dangled over our heads. We were finally, truly independent. So a few minutes after she dropped that little bomb, I decided to tell her the truth. I explained why we had invited them to dinner tonight in the first place. And the second she realized that her son was now holding a prestigious position at the bank, not just another employee but someone in charge, with a team under him, her whole face dropped. For years she'd made him feel like a failure, like he wasn't living up to her expectations career-wise. And now that he'd finally hit a major milestone, and at a relatively young age, too, she was ruining it by turning tonight into some awful ultimatum about grandchildren. I wasn't about to let her tarnish one of the happiest moments of our lives. So I told her straight up, if she really believed we were an embarrassment just because we hadn't had a kid yet, then maybe she should just leave. I said it firmly, and for once, she didn't have a quick comeback. You could see the panic flicker across her face. I think it hit her right then that she might have just messed things up for good. If we moved away and cut her out of our lives, she wouldn't even be able to brag about her successful son to her friends anymore. And honestly, for a woman like her, that would be a bigger humiliation than us not giving her a grandchild. Sensing she was losing control, she scrambled to walk it back, pasted on a fake smile and started gushing about how she'd always known her son had it in him, and how grandkids can wait now. It was almost pathetic to watch. By that point, my husband had finally collected himself a bit. And when she went to hug him, he took a step back and, for the first time I've ever seen, he snapped. For me, it was 5 years worth of frustration finally boiling over. But for my husband? It was a lifetime. Years and years of pressure, criticism, and never feeling good enough all came pouring out of him that night. He ended up crying, and my heart broke watching it happen, because he's not a man who cries easily. It took everything in me not to start crying right along with him. I gently but firmly told my in-laws it was time to leave. I kept my voice calm because the last thing I wanted was for things to get even uglier. My mother-in-law looked like she wanted to stay and talk, but I made it clear it wasn't the right time. I told her she could reach out later, when emotions weren't running so high. They finally left, and my father-in-law even tried mumbling an apology on the way out, but honestly, it was too little, too late. He'd had years to stand up for his son and never once did. After they left, it took over an hour to get my husband to calm down. He was a wreck. I knew his relationship with his parents had always been strained, but now it was completely falling apart and there was nothing I could do to fix it. Nothing either of us could do. It wasn't on us. It was on them. They had decades to be the supportive, loving parents he needed, and they chose not to be. And now that he was finally successful, they didn't deserve to ride the wave of his happiness. The truth is, my mother-in-law has spent my husband's entire life making him feel like he wasn't enough, while his dad just stood by and watched. Never once stepping in. Never once telling her to stop. So when she called about half an hour ago, asking to speak to her son, I answered. And I let her have it. I told her that after everything she said tonight, she didn't get the privilege of just calling up her son whenever she felt like it. If she wanted to reach him, she'd have to go through me first, because I wasn't going to sit back and let her keep hurting him. Of course, she hated that, immediately started arguing with me, raising her voice. But I wasn't about to get dragged into another pointless fight, not with my husband finally sleeping peacefully after the night we'd had. The second her tone shifted, I hung up. She wasn't done, though. She sent me a flood of nasty texts, blaming me for everything, accusing me of being the reason her relationship with her son was falling apart. She said it was my fault because I had refused to marry him back when we were dating, even though I was past the age for it. Now, she said, I was refusing to give him a child, too. According to her, I only cared about money, and I turned her son materialistic too, said that's why this promotion meant more to him than starting a family. I'd been sitting here, feeling awful after reading her messages. Maybe she's right, maybe we are a little materialistic, but honestly, we've always valued our relationships too. If we were only about the money, we wouldn't have spent all these years putting up with her nonsense out of a sense of duty and family loyalty. We didn't need to stay in their good graces just for the inheritance. That's a long way off anyway. And we've never asked for, or expected, a dime from them. I don't think it's fair that she's blaming all of this on me. It's too late right now to call any of my friends, and honestly, I worry they might be too quick to take my side. I don't want biased advice. I just can't seem to relax tonight until I know for sure that I'm not the one who ruined everything. I'm not the kind of person who wants to break up families just to get my own way. I truly don't want my husband cutting ties with his parents if I'm actually the one who's in the wrong, if that makes any sense. That's why I went off on my mother-in-law when she said we were an embarrassment to her and actually kicked my husband out of her will, just because we hadn't had a child. Update 1. I'm back with an update, and before I dive in, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to everyone who took the time to message and comment. It really meant a lot to me. It's been almost 2 days since that disastrous dinner, and we still aren't speaking to my in-laws. Not for lack of trying on their part, they have tried to reach out, but my husband made it clear he's done with them for good. We talked about everything the next morning. I also showed him the texts his mom sent me, the ones where she basically painted me as the villain who had supposedly brainwashed him into chasing money over family. Those messages cut deep. But my husband was quick to reassure me. He told me that wasn't true at all. In fact, he admitted something I hadn't fully realized before. He said that the only reason he had even kept any relationship with his parents going was for the inheritance. He said if it hadn't been for that hope of financial security, he would have moved far away and cut ties a long time ago. They had never supported him emotionally, not as a kid and not as an adult. So, in his mind, the least they could do was leave him something once they were gone. He said he didn't care if he sounded materialistic because he knew what he'd lived through and he was tired of pretending otherwise. Now that he had the career and the salary he'd worked so hard for, he didn't need their money anymore. And with his mother already cutting him out of the will, there really wasn't anything left to salvage between them. We both agreed it was time. It was sad, but it was the right move. Even though his mom kept showing up at our house last night, texting, calling, my husband refused to open the door, refused to answer her. Even if a part of me had wanted to fix things, there wasn't any point anymore. He wasn't willing, and honestly, I couldn't blame him. He told me he's tired. Tired of the pressure, tired of the guilt, tired of always being made to feel like he was never enough. Meanwhile, his mother kept texting me relentless messages blaming me for everything. She begged me to somehow fix things, to convince my husband to talk to her again. But how can she expect me to help when she's still accusing me of being the root of all her problems? The truth is, if she had been a better mother to him, he wouldn't be pushing her away now. And if she had been a better mother-in-law, I wouldn't be standing back and letting it happen. She's the one who failed both roles, not me. My husband's right, cutting ties is the only healthy thing left to do now. Update 2. On a brighter note, my husband and I finally picked out a house. We're planning to start the moving process in just a few days. Earlier today, he called his dad to let him know about our decision. From what my husband said, his father didn't take the news very well. He tried to talk him into staying, but my husband wasn't having it. His mind's made up. He told his dad that all his life, he had hoped his father would stand up for him, would say something, anything, to his mother. But his dad never did. He just stood by silently, too afraid to challenge her. And now, after all these years of silence, he didn't have the right to ask us to stay. His father was upset, sure, but nothing compared to how his mother reacted when she found out. Calling her devastated would be putting it lightly. She was absolutely shattered. Part of me almost felt bad for her, until she showed up at our house yet again. This time, my husband agreed to let her in, thinking maybe they could talk things out once and for all. I didn't want to get dragged into another emotional train wreck, so I stayed in the bedroom while he spoke with her. I didn't hear every word, but afterward, my husband told me what went down. He told her straight out, he didn't want a relationship with her anymore. He explained how her behavior over the years had made his life feel like one long, exhausting competition. She tried to gaslight him, said she was just pushing him to be better. But we all know the truth. It was never about him. It was always about appearances, about how she looked to her friends and family. They went back and forth for a while, and then she just broke down. She started begging him to cancel the move, saying she couldn't stand the idea of him being out of her sight. When he told her, calmly, that he was a grown man and didn't need her permission to live his life, she absolutely lost it. I mean full-on, screaming, hysterical breakdown. I heard the noise from the bedroom and came out to see what was happening. She was throwing cushions around the living room, screaming at the top of her lungs while my husband tried to call someone, probably his father, for help. I tried to step in, to calm her down, but that only made things worse. She turned all her rage on me, accusing me of stealing her son and poisoning him against her. It was a total disaster. Thankfully, my father-in-law arrived just in time. He physically had to drag her out of the house while she kicked and screamed and struggled against him. It was heartbreaking and terrifying to watch. A part of me really did feel sorry for her. Seeing her in that state was just sad. But another part of me was just relieved that she was finally leaving. My husband and I both agreed later that night that letting her in had been a huge mistake. He said he had hoped they could have one last civilized conversation, but now he knows better. From here on out, we're moving forward without them. It's clear as day now, she never really saw my husband as a grown man. She's always just wanted to control him, even now. After everything that happened, the things she said and the way she acted, I honestly don't think anyone could blame us for wanting to cut ties. Honestly, I can't move out of here soon enough. Update 3. Hey again, and this time, I'm back with some really amazing news. Turns out, all the emotions I'd been swimming through these past few days weren't just because of the drama with my in-laws, it's because I'm pregnant. I took a test a few days ago, and sure enough, it was positive. And let me tell you, I am over the moon. It honestly feels like the universe is finally lining everything up for us. First, my husband's big promotion, and now a baby. It just feels like perfect timing, like it was meant to happen this way. My husband and I are absolutely thrilled to be stepping into this new chapter together. As for my in-laws? Well, we haven't told them, and we don't plan to, for obvious reasons. In fact, we've blocked them everywhere, phones, social media, everything. My husband even told his dad that if his mother tries showing up at our house again after that meltdown she had the other night, he won't hesitate to call the cops on her. He made it crystal clear that he's done. Completely and permanently. His father agreed, even though he didn't seem too thrilled about it, to keep his wife away from us. It's honestly sad in a way, because if my mother-in-law had just been able to control herself, if she could have been patient and not acted the way she did, she could have been part of her grandchild's life. She was so close. Just a few more weeks, and we would have been able to share this amazing news with the family. But she blew it. Now, that bridge is burned for good, and honestly, I'm relieved. After seeing her true colors, there's no way I would want her chaotic, toxic energy anywhere near my baby, or me, especially while I'm pregnant. I know pregnancy is already going to be a big enough emotional ride on its own. I don't need her drama adding stress to it. We've already started the moving process, and I'm being super careful to make sure my in-laws don't find out where we're going. The last thing either of us wants is for my mother-in-law to show up uninvited once I'm further along. Right now, our focus is solely on our future, building a happy, peaceful life for us and our baby, free from interference, drama, or guilt-tripping. I can't even put into words how excited I am to become a mom. It feels like the fresh, beautiful beginning we've been waiting for.